My name is Emily Carter. I'm 32 years old, and I work as a financial analyst in Chicago. Growing up, I always believed family was supposed to support each other. I wasn't rich, I wasn't famous, and I certainly wasn't anyone's favorite child. But I worked hard, stayed out of trouble, and tried my best to make my parents proud. Unfortunately, that was never enough, because no matter what I achieved, my younger brother Jake always came first. For years, I accepted it. I told myself things would eventually change. I had no idea that one day my parents would cross a line that would change our family forever. My parents always said they loved my brother and me equally. Growing up, I wanted to believe them, but actions have a way of revealing the truth. When my brother Jake crashed his third car before turning 21, my parents bought him another one. When I earned a full scholarship to college, they forgot to attend my graduation. Back then, I told myself it didn't matter. I focused on building my own life. I worked hard, graduated near the top of my class, and eventually landed a good job. Meanwhile, Jake bounced from one failed business idea to another. Every time he got into trouble, my parents rescued him. Every single time. And somehow they still treated him like the successful child. Then, Grandma Margaret passed away. That was when everything changed. Grandma Margaret was the only person in the family who treated me fairly. She never played favorites. She always told me that character mattered more than appearances. At her funeral, I stood quietly near the back while relatives shared stories about her. Jake spent most of the service talking about what he might inherit. That should have been my first warning. 3 weeks later, our family gathered at a lawyer's office for the reading of Grandma's will. The atmosphere was tense. Everyone expected Grandma's estate to be divided equally. My parents looked confident. Jake looked excited. I just wanted the process to be over. The lawyer adjusted his glasses and began reading. At first, everything seemed normal. A few donations to charities, some gifts to friends. Then he reached the section about the family. The room became silent. "To my grandson Jake," he read, "I leave the sum of $1,000. Jake blinked. My parents exchanged confused looks. $1,000? That couldn't be right. Grandma's estate was worth several million. The lawyer continued, "To my granddaughter Emily, I leave my home, my investment portfolio, and the remainder of my estate." For a moment, nobody spoke. I thought I had misheard him. My parents stared at me. Jake's face turned bright red. Then the shouting started. "There has to be a mistake," my mother yelled. The lawyer calmly shook his head. "There is no mistake." Jake jumped to his feet. "This is ridiculous. Grandma loved me." The lawyer opened a folder. Mrs. Margaret anticipated this reaction. He removed a sealed letter. She requested that this letter be read aloud. The room fell silent again. The lawyer unfolded the paper. The letter began, "If you're hearing this, I am no longer here to speak for myself." I immediately recognized Grandma's handwriting. The lawyer continued, "For years, I watched how this family treated Emily. My heart started pounding. She worked harder than anyone else, yet received the least support. My parents shifted uncomfortably. While Jake was rewarded for irresponsibility, Emily was expected to succeed without help. Nobody said a word. Emily never complained. She simply continued moving forward. My eyes were filling with tears. Character is revealed when nobody is watching. The lawyer paused. Then he read the line that changed everything. "I am leaving my estate to Emily because she earned my respect. Respect cannot be inherited, it must be earned." The room was completely silent. My mother looked shocked. My father stared at the floor. Jake looked furious. The lawyer folded the letter. The meeting ended shortly afterward, but the drama was only beginning. Over the next few days, my phone exploded with messages. Some relatives accused me of manipulating grandma. Others claimed I should split the inheritance. My parents called constantly. At first, I ignored them. Then, my mother left a voicemail. Her voice sounded unusually sweet. She said the family needed to come together. That was interesting, because nobody wanted to share anything with me before. Not the support, not the opportunities, not the attention. Now, suddenly, everyone believed in fairness. A week later, my parents invited me to dinner. Against my better judgment, I agreed. The moment I arrived, I knew exactly what was happening. Jake was there. My parents were smiling. The conversation felt forced. For nearly an hour, they talked about family unity. Then, my father finally got to the point. "We think Grandma made an emotional decision." I almost laughed. My mother nodded. "We believe the estate should be divided equally." There it was, the real reason for the invitation. I looked around the table. For the first time in my life, I saw everything clearly. They weren't upset because Grandma had been unfair. They were upset because they had lost control. I took a deep breath. Then I calmly replied, "No." The room froze. Jake slammed his hand on the table. "You owe us." I stared at him. "Owe you what for?" Nobody had an answer, because there wasn't one. I stood up. Before leaving, I said something I had wanted to say for years. Grandma saw exactly how this family treated me. Then I walked out. Over the next few months, things became even more interesting. Without Grandma's money, Jake's latest business failed. My parents couldn't keep his lifestyle funding forever. For the first time in his life, he had to face consequences. Meanwhile, I used part of the inheritance to start a company I'd been dreaming about for years. The business grew faster than I expected. Within 2 years, I had more success than I ever imagined. One afternoon, my phone rang. It was my father. His voice sounded different, older, tired. He explained that Jake was struggling financially. Then he asked if I could help. I sat quietly for a moment. Years earlier, that conversation would have made me angry, but now I felt something else. Peace. I told him I wished Jake well, but I wasn't responsible for fixing his mistakes. There was a long silence. Then my father said something I never expected to hear. "You were right." I almost dropped the phone. He continued, "We spent so much time helping Jake that we failed to appreciate everything you achieved. For years, I had wanted an apology. Now that it finally came, it felt strangely unimportant, because my happiness no longer depended on their approval." After we hung up, I thought about Grandma. She understood something I hadn't. The greatest inheritance wasn't money. It was knowing your own worth. For years, I had searched for validation from people who refused to give it. Grandma gave me something far more valuable, the confidence to stop asking. And in the end, that changed my life more than any amount of money ever could.